my channel and welcome back to round 3, but video 4, I believe, in Palette Madness, March Palette Madness, which is an eyeshadow palette tournament that I created inspired by the NCAA basketball tournament March Madness. So if you missed my introduction, I will leave that link down below so that you can get a little bit more information about this tournament. But we have 2 brackets. We have bracket A and bracket B because I have so many eyeshadow palettes, and we are down to the sweet 16 in each bracket. So we're going to be going through bracket A and B in today's video, and by the end of today's video we will be through to the Elite 8 in each bracket. If you're interested, stay tuned. First, if you have yet to subscribe to my channel and you like palette themed content or just chit-chatting about makeup, that is what we do over here on this channel. Also, don't forget to like and comment and do the things that the YouTube algorithm loves for you to do. I would really appreciate it. And without further ado, let's jump into the video. Okay. As we get closer and closer to the finals, the decisions are going to get harder and harder. And we are kicking it off with a really tough one, a really tough matchup. We have the Persona Identity one, which has been such a long time staple favorite palette in my collection, up against the Danessa Myricks Lightworks Volume 6, which I absolutely love and adore the Danessa Myricks Lightworks palettes. I think they're so fun. I love all the shifts. I love all the color. The packaging on this one and the innovation is just incredible. But I think I'm gonna have to give it to my staple comfort palette, just like the tried and true Persona Identity is gonna move on in this situation. Okay, we have the Pat McGrath Subliminal versus ABH Cosmos, and both, like, these 2 palettes are gonna kind of take you in different directions. This is very cool toned, very blue, or like just dull kind of inspired, but I absolutely love this palette because I love blue eyeshadow. And then with this one, we have quite a few fun like special shadows, and then we have more warm toned mattes, and ABH Cosmos is gonna take the cake on this one. I feel like there's just a lot more variety with this palette. There's a lot more that I can do. I've created some looks that I really love with this eyeshadow palette, so Cosmos is moving on. This next one is going to be a tough one because it's 2 staples. All right, next up we have Alter Ego Canyon versus Vizier Soleil Le Plage. I love both of these palettes. I feel like both of these are more like spring summertime palettes to me. This one is giving more like light spring weather, like we've got like the pastel yellows, we've got the blue, whereas this is giving a little bit deeper, more sultry, like summer heat. Actually, this is so tough. I was gonna go with Vizier, and then I'm like, but I like them for different reasons, but I think I'm gonna go with my Vizier. I love a pale yellow inner corner highlight, so I feel like the yellows in this are what is helping it to advance. I really love both of these though, but Vizier is gonna move on in this one. All right, next up we have the Sigma Corderosa versus Tiny Marvels. This one's a little bit easier for me. Tiny Marvels is definitely gonna move on. I feel like I feel like Sigma in this one, like I like this palette, but I feel like this is one of the ones that maybe just like it had a couple upsets, or it just, you know, maybe met a couple teams, a couple eyeshadow palettes throughout the tournament that were just a little bit easier for it to progress on. But I love Tiny Marvels. I love the special, like just colorful specialness that this has to offer. This is a great palette for summer, but there's a little bit less variety with Sigma Corderosa, and Tiny Marvels is one of my favorite palettes. So Tiny Marvels is moving on. Ooh, dang, there's some toughies. There are some toughies. Okay. We have Basic Witch versus Ninhydrin. Oh my gosh, this one is actually so tough. I feel like I want to go with Ninhydrin because of like, just like it's a little bit more colorful, but I also, this is my first Bella Beauté bar palette. I love this palette. I still love this color story in this. Oh, this is so tough. I can also do a full look. I'm gonna go Basic Witch. I'm going Basic Witch. I'm gonna go Basic Witch, but I do really like this palette. This is more of a companion palette, whereas I can create full looks with Bella Beauté bar Basic Witch. This one's a really tight race, but Ninhydrin is going to go home and Basic Witch will advance on. Okay, this one is a pretty easy one. We have Fantasy Cosmetica Druid, which I do love. I especially love the duochromes in here. And this one is up against the Glaminatrix Nearly Natural eyeshadow palette, which I have raved for years about being one of my favorite eyeshadow palettes of literal all time. So Nearly Natural is gonna advance on for very obvious reasons. Ooh, this next one's kind of a toughie. We've got the Adept Flying Fiddles versus the Kaleidos Sashimi City. So we've got spicy neutrals versus a 7-pan eyeshadow palette that I know what I'm gonna get with this palette. I love the looks that I create with this. This one definitely offers more variety. Oh, I originally thought I was gonna go Sashimi City, but now I'm like, oh, this one's just so fun. So fun and so spicy. I think Flying Fiddles is gonna move on in this round. My heart is telling me to pick Flying Fiddles. Sashimi City, we love you though. That was kind of, I feel like that was kind of an upset. Okay, and this next one is also gonna be a difficult choice. So we have the Kaleidos Flower Punk versus the Fall Magic palette from Unearthly. I really like both of these. Both of these, I feel like, okay, I love Flower Punk for everything but the mints. And I feel like I kind of get the same vibes with like the quads in the Unearthly. The Unearthly is definitely a more special palette in that it has like duochromes in here, really beautiful foiled shades. I have some looks that I absolutely love with Flower Punk though. Man, you guys, I feel like the obvious choice would be to advance on Unearthly. I really love the Flower Punk so much though. Like I really do love Flower Punk. I think I'm gonna move Flower Punk along. I feel like this is so wrong. This is a big ups. Oh, this is so tough because I love some of the like duochromes in this palette. But there's just like some like comfort looks I have with this one. I am gonna go with what my gut is telling me. And I'm gonna actually, I'm gonna have Kaleidos Flower Punk move on because it would feel wrong to do the opposite now. Okay, that is the bracket A. So we have our Elite 8. So next video will obviously be me going through the Elite 8 and then we will be down to the final 4 in each bracket. And then we'll have a video for that. And then when I'm like to the true final 4, I'll do a look with each of the 4 palettes. But anyway, this is the Elite 8 in bracket A. So that means we are on to bracket B. Bracket B was the majority of the new eyeshadow palettes to my collection last year, plus some old lingering favorites like all of my Natasha Denona and Huda Beauty palettes were also in bracket B. So starting with the first matchup, we have Terra Moon Space Chemistry, which I feel like has like snuck its way into the Sweet 16, versus Bella Beauté Bar Recently De-Influenced. And I have to go with Recently De-Influenced. The quality in this one, what is actually happening to my shadows? And this was a favorite shadow. Okay, I'm gonna try and salvage this. Okay, I don't know why, like I'm like, is there something in the air in my apartment that's like making my eyeshadows crack and break? Terra Moon Space Chemistry is sitting in a timeout because one of my favorite shadows in that palette is trying to be no more with me. We're not allowing that to happen. Regardless, Bella Beauté Bar Recently De-Influenced would be moving on anyway. I love the special shadows in this eyeshadow palette. I think this is such a fun palette. It doesn't look that interesting, but trust me, in person it is. So we're moving along with Bella Beauté Bar. Then we have the Cool Chills palette from Cosmic Brushes up against the Vamp palette from Bella Beauté Bar, and it has to be Bella Beauté Bar Vamp. There's just something so special and so fun and so on brand and so like on theme with the Vamp palette. I absolutely love and adore this palette. So this one's moving on. We're noticing a theme here. I really do mean it when I say Bella Beauté Bar is one of my favorite brands. We have the Poison Garden palette from Bella Beauté Bar up against Cosmic Brushes Undergrowth. It's definitely going to Bella Beauté Bar Poison Garden. I freaking love this palette. It is quickly becoming one of my favorite eyeshadow palettes in my entire collection. I still also love Undergrowth. This one is a painful decision because I love green eyeshadow and there are some really, really special shadows in this palette, but I just love Poison Garden so much that I just can't. Oh, this next one is a good pairing because it's like 2 spicy neutral palettes. Okay, I have Sorcerer's Smoke from Unearthly, and I have the Cosmic Brushes Neutrals eyeshadow palette. I have to go with neutrals. It's just giving more variety, giving more options, has special shadows in it as well. This I still love. I still love this. It's hard because I do love the shade Sorceress. Like, there's things that I absolutely love and adore about this palette, but oh, actually it's so tough. I'm going with my gut. I'm going with my gut. Neutrals is gonna move on, but Sorcerer's Smoke I still do really love and adore. Oh, okay, this is an interesting one. Okay, so we have Tartelette in Bloom against Natasha Denona Yucca. This is so boring and basic. This is Natasha Denona, like a green palette that I really love and adore, but I have to go with Tartelette in Bloom because it is just such a staple for me. Like, I don't have to think about it and I can use this and like I'm happy with my makeup, whereas this I feel like I would have to think a little bit harder just about the look that I'm creating. I would obviously get something a little bit more grungy, and I love my Tartelette in Bloom. What can I say? All right, this is another fairly easy one for me. We have the NARS Climax palette against the Natasha Denona I Need a Warm, and I Need a Warm is definitely winning this one. I love this palette from Natasha Denona. I like that we have more like neutrals and some warms. I like that there's a variety amongst the different shimmers in here. Like, there's just a different, there's variety, or there's different like finishes, textures, tones, shades amongst some of the shimmers, whereas sometimes with Natasha it all kind of feels like one and the same. I think this is such a classic staple just for, again, kind of basic, everyday, easy, on the go. So Natasha Denona I Need a Warm will be moving on. Oh, this is a tough, the final two matchups are really tough. We have Artist Couture Supreme Nudes versus my NARS Summer Solstice. I love both of these. Both of these are like top palettes in my collection, but I am gonna have to go with the Artist Couture Supreme Nudes. I just feel like this one offers me more. I like the mattes in here. I feel like I have a good selection of mattes to kind of get me through really anything that I would need, especially when it comes to like neutral or warm tone shades. I love to travel with this palette. It's excellent. This one is moving on, and then this one is gonna be so hard. I don't know, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this matchup. We have the gold palette from Natasha Denona against Huda Beauty Rose Quartz. Obviously two different routes. I love this palette for like its ethereal romanticness, but I love this for more, like if I had to choose one of these palettes to like wear every day, it definitely, I would wear this more frequently day to day. This might be more like special occasion. If this is giving like fairy vibes, I could wear this special occasion or every day. I think I have to go with gold just for practicality, but oh, that one really pains me. That one really pains me. But after that, we also have our Elite 8 in the bracket B. So I'm gonna go grab all the palettes and we can quickly go through basically our Sweet 16, but the Elite 8 in each bracket. It is interesting to look at these and see like some of my like all-time favorite palettes, but I didn't necessarily control where every single palette fell in terms of like which palettes it was up against. So some of my favorite palettes like gold and mercury, like gold and rose quartz, ended up against one another. So they couldn't both obviously make the Elite 8, but in tournament bracket B, the Elite 8, we have the Persona Identity 1. This is an all-time favorite palette, so it's good to see that this has made the final 8. We have the ABH Cosmos palette, which I did really enjoy the year that I purchased this. I will say I don't think this is my most reached for palette, but I do have really fond memories of the looks that I created with this palette, so good to see that. We have Vizier at Soleil La Plague, which is another one of the palettes that I talk about quite frequently as an all-time favorite on this channel, so that's no surprise. I'm really also not surprised about Tiny Marvels. I love this palette. I will say I do that thing with this palette where I feel like I have to reserve this for special occasions, so it doesn't get the miles necessarily that I feel like it deserves. So I am happy to see that one in the final 8. Basic Witch, lots of fond memories tied to this. It was my first Bella Beauté bar palette. I love the color story. I think it's really fun. Outside of my comfort zone a little bit, but not surprised to see this in the final 8 either. A palette I talk about as being like one of my favorite palettes of all time. So we're not surprised to see Glaminatrix Nearly Natural. I'm a little bit surprised about Adept Flying Fiddles, although I will say I have been leaning more into neutrals this year. I know I have like pink and purple on my lids today, but I love a spicy neutral moment. So I'm excited to see if this one, you know, advances forward. I am very surprised about Flower Punk. There's just something about this that makes me so happy to look at, and I really do have some looks with this. It's really just 2 looks. A look with these 3 shadows and a look with these 4 shadows that I've done quite a bit. And there's a look, there's a picture, and it was like a good day and a good makeup day where I was wearing these 3 shadows, and I just feel like I have such fond memories because of that. I also love the packaging. I remember the teasers of this years ago and just being like, I must have that palette. So, but still a little bit surprised to see that in the finals. All right, the Elite 8 in the B bracket, we have the Bella Beauté bar Recently De-Influenced. I'm not surprised to see a lot of Bella Beauté bar just because I love the brand. I will say I am a little bit surprised to even own this palette. I had ruled this palette out a year and a half ago when it launched, but I am so glad that I came around to this palette because the shifts in this palette specifically, and for someone who loves greens and like a shifty green, like aqua greeny blue teal sort of shade, I am really getting that in some of these shadows. So I'm not super surprised. I really ended up being surprised by this palette last year and falling in love with it. So not surprised now to see it in the final 8. Same thing goes with the Vamp palette. Again, it's a Bella Beauté bar palette. There are blues in here. There is the shade Skin of a Killer, which is such a beautiful, sparkly lid topper. I guess maybe when I first bought this, I would have been surprised because there's reds in here, and reds really intimidate me, but I had so much fun playing around with the reds, and I do like the 2 matte purples that we get in this palette as well. I'm absolutely not surprised to see Bella Beauté bar Poison Garden in this, in the Elite 8. This was my top favorite palette that I tried last year, so not at all surprised about that. Same with the Cosmic Brushes Neutrals. This was a top palette for me last year. I feel like this just offers a lot of variety. It's a very solid palette to have for just every day, but also has some pops of color. So not really surprised to see this. I will say not surprised to see Tartelette in Bloom in the Elite 8, but also this could be considered just such a boring palette that, like, you know, it could have gone home in the early rounds. But I literally have repurchased this palette because I missed having this in my collection. I also don't think Tartelette in Bloom is being made anymore in this size, so it scares me a little bit. Not really surprised to see Natasha Denona I Need a Warm. I will say I really fell in love with this palette last year. I feel like I always thought of myself as more of a cool toned loving girl because I love blue eyeshadow, and I do think of myself typically as more cool complected, but then I'm always self-tanning and always like a little bit more warm tone than I think I am. So I really was leaning into warm tone shadows last year, and this also has some neutrals as well, so not super surprised to see that. This I've raved about as an all-time favorite palette on my channel, so I'm very happy that it made the Elite 8 with the Supreme Bronze or Supreme Nudes. And then also not surprised at all that the Natasha Denona Gold is in the Elite 8 because I have also talked about this being one of my favorite palettes of all time. So that is it, you guys. There we have it. Those are the final 16 palettes, so the Elite 8 in each bracket for this March Eyeshadow Madness tournament. I would love to know if your predictions have changed. Let me know what palette you would love to see make the final 4. Let a girl know in the comments below. Other than that, thank you so much for sticking around to watch today's video and for supporting me and my channel as you guys always do. I love you guys so much, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye.